Our heroes have met and found out what they are. Scions. Demigods. They have travelled to the underworld and defeated the plans of the Titan Hyperion. And now they need to kickstart the apocalypse. But we'll have to wait a little bit for that. Because this episode is in fact a bit of a Q&A. So
Woo!
Sit back, relax,
Woo!
and enjoy. Hello everyone, and welcome to A Rendezvous with Destiny, our Scion actual play podcast. As ever, I am your GM, Luce, and today we are going to be doing a bit of a Q&A, and with that, with me today I have...
Hi, I'm Graham, and today I will not be playing the character of Elspeth Lockwood.
Hi, I'm Will, and I will be playing the character of Will.
Oh.
Hi, I'm Am, and I'm going to be playing the role of beleaguered editor.
So no change, really.
Yeah.
I literally I'm snacking on some crisps,
snacks.
which I'm going to name unbranded because no one sponsors us. And
Although we
I
are
thought
available
Luce
for
was gonna-
sponsorship, let us know now.
Particularly from, certain crisp brands that are really good. I have some ideas. Hit me up.
But I literally heard everyone start to do their intro and took a whole crisp out of my mouth so I wouldn't be crunching.
Save yourself a job there.
It's
That's 5
soggy
minutes.
and it's in my hand.
That's horrible.
I've been around Am long enough that I can fully realise this image in my mind.
Oh, no.
Oh, you know,
We
I
believe you.
think he's done it in front of all of us at various points.
Yeah.
That's grim, but true.
I'm a little gremlin woman.
You are.
Yes.
Luz, I believe you've done some arbitering and got some wonderful listener questions for
I
us.
do.
Yay!
We're going to answer a few audience questions, and I've got a couple of questions which I'm going to ask our PCs and their players, and then I think they've got some questions for me. I might not be able to answer all of those. I might not be able to answer all questions in depth because it might spoil some stuff that's coming up, but I'll answer them to the best of my ability. So, sort of first question is from @WelshSnarker on Twitter. It is
Woo!
Woo! How do you think all of you having substantial GMing experience affected the dynamic of the game? In my opinion, I think it's actually quite a helpful thing because we all have DM'd quite a lot and GM'd, especially with each other. I think it means that we know when we can push the boundaries a bit more and when we can be talking. And we also have a bit of respect for being quiet when the GM is doing plot stuff, but also having fun and messing around as well, because we know each other well enough to be able to do that.
We all know
What
a
do you
plot
guys
thread
think?
when we see one. I think that's... I wonder if we should go over there.
Yeah, that's the other thing. We're good
Yeah.
at picking up on signals, in that regard. We all know how difficult it is sometimes to be here's what I want you to do. So
I think it also means we all have quite a good understanding of correct story pacing, so that we know when we think it's an appropriate time to move on from a scene, and things like that. Even though we always end up recording way more than Luce originally planned.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, we know when to do
We're
it,
in
we just
trouble.
don't do it.
But yeah, I think
Oh, no.
there's a lot of good that's come out of it. I do also think that does mean that we can be a bit more precious about our characters and the story we want to tell, which isn't necessarily a good thing, but I think it's worked out in this instance. You know what I mean?
In terms of we're all quite story-based people who are I want to do the thing, look at my character.
Yeah, and we're all focused on even though we all care a lot about our characters, and we definitely have a story in mind for each of our PCs, I think it's also meant that we recognise that there is a wider story that's more important than our PCs, if that makes sense. If I have to miss out on a thing that I think would be cool for Flora to do, for example, I usually, whenever I play a PC, I usually play the tank or the fighter. And I really like getting the kills, but especially in this instance when it's more narratively interesting for Elspeth when she's fighting Professor Madison, or Cleo when she's fighting Leah, to let them do most of the hitting because they've built their characters to be better at that, but also it's more narratively satisfying if they get the kill.
I wonder if we almost perhaps intentionally or unintentionally too much with stuff like that sometimes, though, because we are like, oh, it'd be such a good story if this happens. I think this is something that just is because we all quite like a good story, so maybe we are like, yeah, that would be so cool. I don't know. I don't think it's actually affected.
And I also think
really, that
the style which we play anyway is a lot more story based than it is sort of more in depth into the mechanics of the game. So I think in that case, in that way, I think it's actually quite good that everyone is quite story focused, because it does create a really, really interesting narrative, which sometimes can be put on the back burner if you're really focusing in on the rules of a game.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone here, but I think collectively we'd probably agree that still the old saying about the dice are the best storytellers is you know, sort of at the heart of how we like to play.
Yeah, like I spent half of one episode getting stuck behind a bin, and I found that really fun, actually.
That was very amusing.
More than half, because here's some behind-the-scenes knowledge. My microphone wasn't working, so we had to re-record that like a load of times.
Yeah,
we had to re-record that one section about 3 times.
Yeah, and each time I rolled terribly.
Each time you got progressively worse at hiding behind the bin.
It was great.
Each time I was like, I was actually still surprised, because I was just like, this might as well happen, I suppose. It was great. I loved it.
But yeah, thank you. That was a really good question.
Thank you, mystery person who we don't know.
Who's that?
Yes, we don't know these people. And then we've got one from Grass Grows, which is... so I'd love to hear about your experiences and decision to use the Scion system and your thought process when creating your PCs. So, well, I'll go a little bit into why... Because I was one who sort of pitched the idea of using the Scion system to everyone, because we've played a lot of other games before, so we've played a lot of D&D, a lot of Monster of the Week, quite a few of the Grant Howitt one-page RPGs as well. But I
and
quite like reading game like RPG books for fun, because that's the kind of person I am. So I'll read ones I'll never play. Like, I really, really love the Nobilis RPG book. I will never play Nobilis in my life, but it's a really good book. That kind of vibe. And I was looking through, because I quite like a lot of the other Onyx Path games, so I thought, oh, what's this one about? Oh, it's about demigods. That looks really fun. And then was like, it's lockdown. We're not really doing anything, except for Will, who actually does have work. But, oh well. And I was like, it would be fun to maybe examine this and look into this system a little bit. Yeah, so that's sort of why I chose it. And none of us had ever played the system before, so it has been a bit of a learning curve, so trying to figure out what all the rules are, and we don't play a lot of the rules. It's Scion Light what we're playing. But what did you think about the character creation process?
But I just like to say quickly, first of all, I'm very sorry to all of the hardcore like Scion purists out there who are listening to the podcast and go, no, I can't believe they're getting initiative wrong. No. But,
I think initiative is like the one thing I've doing right. I have not figured out how to do movement at all. It's really confusing.
It's in movement bands, isn't it? And I'm like, how far is a band? I'm just sort of, I guess we kind of eyeball it. It's like, are you near this? Do you have to run a football pitch length? Because then it's probably not in your band.
Yeah. It's like, that sounds vaguely right. I think you could probably run that in 6 seconds.
Sure.
One of the reasons why I started playing Dungeons & Dragons even before all these systems was because I was a massive fan of the Adventure Zone. And they barely play D&D in that.
We were just talking about how we basically are just doing improv and we pretend there's some logic to it with the dice, but there isn't really.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. In terms of character creation, I will say we did record our entire character creation session, so we do have it.
Yeah, it's out
complete
there.
Mess.
It's so bad.
How long is that? Like 4 hours?
It's like I edited it down to about an hour and a half.
It was about 3-ish hours, I think.
Yeah,
I got drunk and was really mean.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry.
Adam spends the last quarter of that thing just being like, fine, guess I'll do this then.
I was having a hard
lying on the
time.
floor
I was. I had my first lockdown breakdown. It was all fine.
Yeah, it all got better. Maybe if enough people say they want to hear it, we might release a bit of it.
Very
I will.
cringe.
I'm happy. Graham and I had a radio show at university, and I did read some of my old fan fiction live on air.
Oh, it was great.
I literally, I have no shame.
It was really good,
in terms
actually.
of
I
what I
enjoyed
put
your
out into the
fanfic.
public sphere.
I do think a lot of
Thank
the
you.
stuff that ended up getting cut out of that episode was me looking at the rulebook and being like, what? Which page do I need to be on? Which of the two rulebooks do I need to
Yeah.
be looking at?
There's
Give
a
me
lot of-
5 minutes and talk amongst yourselves.
A lot of page finding. There still is, to be
Yeah.
honest. But there really was.
But in terms of thought process when creating the PCs, like I said, I'm like the go-to tank or glass cannon of the party usually. Like I love playing monks, I love playing fighters, and I kind of wanted to do something a bit different, especially because I'm quite a boring, nice, soft person, so I don't usually get to play someone who's sort of, I don't know, like, I wouldn't say Flora's a con woman, but someone who's a little bit more outgoing and confident. And I have loved the idea of tricksters and mischief deities, and that was kind of what I really wanted to do. So when I was starting with Flora's parents, I was like, okay, it's got to be either Loki or Sun Wukong or someone. And in the end, I'm really glad I didn't pick Loki.
That would have been awkward. Spoilers.
I would have just used a different trickster god. But yeah.
Boys, what about you?
Will, do you want to go?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
basically, I'm usually a caster or a support, and I thought it would be fun to play a tank. I thought it would be fun to do something a bit differently, play a character who's just very good at combat and not a huge amount else.
Will and I did swapsies.
Yeah, basically, Am and I swapped our usual party roles, but with Cleo in particular, I was just looking through what is quite a comprehensive rulebook, really, for Scion, and I thought that the whole story of Bast was really interesting. I thought that was a really good basis for a fighter. So that's how I end up where I am.
For me, so I always pretty much play healers, support class, clerics, whatever. This is just what I do. So I was looking through the rulebook, how can I make this into a cleric character? And then I was like, I used to play a cleric in another game that we had, which was a 5th edition D&D game, who I really liked, who is very similar character. Yeah, very similar sort of character archetype to Elspeth. Maybe a little more,
Bubbly.
a little less nerdy. Yeah. A little less reserved. Anyway, but I wanted to... I realised that I missed playing that character, and I wanted to see if I could get a similar experience in Scion. It turns out that actually you can't, really, because there's not the same sort of system in terms of, in combat, bonus action versus action, and spells, slots like that, and healing just isn't really also a huge thing. Partly because the damage works differently, but partly because it's not as supported. But anyway, I was like, it'd be fun to see if we can sort of take that similar energy into a different character. And then I started thinking about backstory, and I just thought, I always loved Norse mythology. And I wanted to sort of link that to a fairly positive aspect of Norse mythology, Balder's like a cheerful dude who's loved by everyone. And I thought, it'd be fun to roll with that.
I mean, except Loki.
Yeah. Except for Loki, yeah.
But in the sort of vein of backstory ideas, before we sort of did all the character creation, because we did that all together, I sent all the guys sort of equipping a little bit from the Dread sort of idea of character creation, where you get given a questionnaire. I sent everyone a questionnaire to fill out, just so they had a bit of idea of what kind of story we were going to be telling, and looking at the questions and thinking about what kind of making the character people before you start rolling, before you start figuring out what you're gonna what skills you're gonna put in what, so you have an idea of the character before you sit down to create it.
I really like that as a way to do it. I think we've also, I think some other people we play with who have recently started up games have also sent questionnaires around, and it does actually, if you are struggling to think of fully flesh out a character, it helps
absolutely.
you kind of get in their shoes.
And I think we shall thank you for the question, Grass Grows, who is also our art friend, who you may have seen do amazing fan art of the podcast.
You can commission her now,
Which we
so
love.
please
you
do
should
that.
go commission her.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good.
She's Grass Grows on Twitter and Instagram if you want to commission her. I have literally commissioned her for a bunch of different things, and she's super, super talented and very lovely. Give her money.
Got a question here from Old Man Rupee, and it's sort of it's a little bit for you guys first. So what's been the most difficult part of the process so far? Not gonna lie, probably everyone's internet connections and the issues we've been having with recordings. Yeah. Something goes wrong at least once each week.
It's not something really that I participated in, but like setting up the RSS feed and everything, I think was like a real headache for Am and Graham as well, with the graphics and things. Literally, I think once we started, it's kind of been all right, but I think the initial setup process,
getting it set up was quite difficult. We had to go through a couple of different platforms to try and sort it
obviously we're still quite early on, and basically the people that are listening are our friends, so I'm sure if we start getting a little bit more outreach at some point, there'll be other challenges that will come with that. Not our problem at the moment.
Yeah, I just want to... Am has been editing all of this, and it is fantastic, and she's doing such an amazing job.
Yeah,
it's true.
Very good job being done there.
Aww.
A lot of time being put in.
Thank you.
And it's come out well.
I really enjoy editing. I think I used to do, as all of you guys know, but some of our listeners might not know, I used to do a lot of the media societies at our undergrad university, which is incidentally how I met Graham. I used to do a lot of video editing, and like I said, we also had our little radio show, and I've really, really missed that interaction with producing fun media with people you like. So it's hard, but I just really enjoy it. It makes me very happy to have an audio file and be like, I made that with my friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's very sweet.
What was the second half of the question before we all start getting super mushy?
Yeah, so the second, this is a bit more for me, but I think it would be interesting to have a little bit of a chat about this, was for the DM, was there anything you heavily planned to happen, but it didn't happen because the players did something else? And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a peek behind the curtain here, and my style of DMing, which is I don't really plan anything at all.
Yay!
There is no plan.
Pretty much. I have ideas of... I have a list of monsters and some vague stat ideas written next to them. I have a list of spaces that an NPC could fill, and a list of names from mythology. And then I was like, okay, for the first bit, I know they're going to go to the underworld, there's going to be 4 souls to defeat, and there might be a big battle at the end. Other than that, where they go is all up to the players and what they decide. So I quite like the sandbox way of doing things. So if you decided to do something different, the arc would have been the same, but the actual details would have been very, very different. I will say, this was originally planned to be sort of a 7-8 episode arc, but because of the amount of role-playing you guys did, it extended itself, because there was, I think it's episode 7, Quoth the Raven. The only thing you guys did was talk to a raven. That's the only thing that actually affected anything
Functionally,
in the game.
We did nothing that entire episode. It was great.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I was just saying that I had a full... I had the battle, you were going to fight the soul that episode, and then you just didn't, and I was like, this works, this is fine, this is amusing.
Just breaking into someone's office instead for 2 hours was great.
Yep.
I think also bringing that back to the first question, that's, I think, definitely one of the things that sort of benefits from us all being GMs, because we all kind of have different, a sliding scale of the way we do things, in that I have been running a game for about 9 months now. That's kind of my long-term game, and I literally plan 20 words per session. Maybe I have a block of stats for someone they're going to fight. Loose plans a little bit more than that. Will kind of plans
I plan a lot less than that. I had 1 page of notes for the entire 10 arc thing.
Will plans a little bit more than me, and then literally I met Luce at a game Graham ran, and he literally just showed up with a massive binder full of stuff and just put it on the table, and I was like, oh wow.
Hope you all like stat blocks.
You make very good maps.
But through that, I think we definitely understand and appreciate different kinds of GMing. I've been in this is obviously a game run by Luce. I play in a regular game run by Will, and I've played loads of games that Graham has run, and none of them are bad games. They're just different kinds of games, and I think through our different styles, that's something that we've very much all grown to appreciate.
Yeah, I think it's really good, and I think it helps because we all play with each other quite a lot, and we all do have quite different styles. It's fun when we sort of move between games and things, and sort of get to say, I get to play thing, and it's always going to be different, which is really, really good fun.
Yeah.
The variety is nice.
It is really nice. Thank you, lovely audience, for those questions. They're really cool.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions for the players, see what they're thinking about things. But before, I think we've got time for just one quick one from Brass Bros, which is, if you could give your PCs one piece of advice going forward, assuming they'd listen, what would it be?
Oh.
I think I would tell Elspeth just to kind of loosen up a little bit, I guess. I think she did go through the whole last arc kind of with the idea that like she knew that her family was directly in danger, quite probably for like most of the last arc, which was also a threat for the other PCs. Sorry, but I think for them it was more something might happen later. But for her, it was like your mother is going to be murdered. So that was. But I think in general, she's quite like reserved and a little bit shy, and could do with just cutting loose a little bit. She has started to sass the other player characters now, though, which is it begins.
Yeah, I mean, for mine, similarly, I'm kind of telling Cleo to loosen up, but in the sense of like buy into it a little bit more. Basically, like yeah, I mean, at the moment, Cleo's very sort of wary about everything, and still doesn't fully. Like, obviously, she's seen enough that she knows that what's going on has to be sort of legit, but she's still kind of very, okay, those aren't actually Amazons or whatever, where just like she does need to actually kind of just buy into the fact that she's in a crazy world and kind of get used to it.
Does she kind of think it'll like go away eventually still? Because I know she went into it with this idea that like, okay, I'll be able to stop after a while, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit like that, actually, yeah. So... Okay, sunshine, you know, you're not in Kansas anymore, this is the world, and get used to it. So that's definitely a step she needs to take, yeah.
I think if I had to give Flora any advice, it would I have a tendency, my PCs are kind of, you know, I think everyone has that kind of similarity in all their PCs through one aspect or another. And mine is that I tend to play young women who have sort of the weight of the world on their shoulders. I'd probably tell Flora that she doesn't have to be the person constantly standing in front of her friends to try and protect them. They're allowed to try and protect her sometimes. She doesn't have to be the one who feels like it's her job to make the sacrifice constantly. It hasn't been super high stakes yet, so I don't think that's come up or is particularly relevant as of yet, but I really, really worry about her in the future.
She is small. She should hide behind us instead.
Hide behind the two tanks, like.
Yeah, I mean, like your armor, not armor class, obviously, but
defense.
Your defense.
My defense roll is 4.
Yeah, I think mine's 8 and yours is 9 or something.
That is correct. Yeah.
Cleo's is 10, isn't it?
No, because it's best combat skill, which is 4 plus Dex, which is 5.
Yeah.
I think it's 9.
Yeah, mine's 8, varying to, I think it's 9 or 10 it goes up to if I'm in the same range band as someone I'm protecting.
Yes.
Oh!
So we're both like these super tanky people. I don't know when that plays in. This is a thing where I'm like, how does the rule work here? Because I think it reads like I might have to be actively using the defend action. Anyway,
we'll figure that out
question
at
for
some
another
point.
time. We'll work it out. But yeah, I feel like Flora can definitely be hidden behind us. We'll be fine.
Well, we'll have to see how it all plays out and see what if they end up listening to any of that advice. You know, I've got a couple of questions for you guys. So, having played when we created the characters, obviously, we didn't really know what the system was super going to be like. So, having played it for a bit, do you think there's anything you would have done differently in character creation? Would you have focused on anything else, or do you think you're quite happy with how it's all sort of played out?
I mean, from like a narrative perspective, I think how Cleo is really makes sense, but from like a practical perspective, I think it would be nice to have somewhere if she was a little more useful outside of combat. Because a lot of the time it's kind of like the other two kind of work stuff out and I just kind of go and punch people, which is fine and it's fun and I think it works
in character
in the narrative as all three sort of being in different places in their personal journeys. But I think it would be nice to kind of have a little bit more like personal stake, basically.
Playing Elspeth is weird because there's a lot of stuff with the character that I don't do yet. So a lot of her background sort of skills and things, I don't use them. So she has an ability, for example, to like cast runes to sort of see slightly into the future, stuff like that, which I don't use because I don't think she'd know about it yet. So my issue is that I think she's probably in a place now where she will start to be able to do that. But I did build a character and then not be able to use half the stuff, partly because I was like, I don't really know how to fit that in, and partly because I don't believe that she has that capability yet. So I think maybe I would have, if I wanted to get around that, and I don't know if I actually would have, I would have probably written her backstory slightly differently. It's the easiest fix I can think for it. But I think it does make sense to play it, sort of add them in incrementally.
Well, first off, big reveal. From the way Luce phrased the, like, world when they were telling us about it, I didn't realise that people didn't know myths were real. I thought it was, like, a commonplace thing, and that everyone kind of knew about it.
Has gone for anything else, then?
I didn't realise it was, like, a magical realism secret. So that didn't, like, strongly affect how I played Flora, but I think it definitely changed stuff.
I suppose it's... Yeah, because the idea I have, it's not that it's fully secret. It's like people know that, like, the myths and things are true, but there's sort of an idea that it's not, because of technology, it's not happening anymore. So, like, it's not that people think that myth's a myth. They think, like, myth is, as I said in the very beginning intro, myth in the world we kind of is the history. So everything in myth actually happened, and people know that it actually happened, and everyone knows that. And you're taught it in history lessons, sort of thing.
Okay.
But there's sort of an idea that it's not really affecting the world anymore because sort of technology has overtaken magic.
Yeah.
Is that like in the Greek sense where it's all the age of heroes and then it's like, oh, it's just everything's taken a step back now? Or...
Yeah, sort of that idea, but again, across the entire world. So people know that it happened, but they think, oh, it's not affecting us anymore because we don't worship the gods anymore in that same way, and we don't... And sort of magic isn't as important anymore because we can all get places really easily. So it's sort of it's fallen by the wayside a little bit. But I think that's gonna come up more as we sort of play, sort of get into the wider world a bit more rather than a very small area of Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, and then the second thing was that I, again, because Will and I are a hive mind, I accidentally, I took some of the same leadership knacks that Will also took, and I don't really like to use them because Flora's not as strong as I thought she would end up being, more of like a support cast. So I don't really want to use stuff like Biggest Threat as often as Cleo does because Cleo can take the hit and I really, really can't. I don't know if I would have built her differently because I think in some instances Biggest Threat is going to be really useful, especially if the other two are hurt and Flora wants to make some kind of sacrificial move. But I don't know if, knowing how the character interactions would have turned out, I wouldn't have picked different leadership knacks.
Interesting. And sort of in the same sort of vein, sort of looking back again, is there anything you think you would have done differently while you were playing the characters if when you made decisions? Do you think there's anything you would have done differently that would have that you think you should have done differently? Like how you reacted or how you interacted with things in the world?
Yeah, Flora should have been meaner. I'm just bad at playing mean characters.
You are, yes. You always do
every
this.
time that makes a character, she's like, I'm gonna be mean. It lasts like half an hour.
And then she's just lovely.
I wish I could play Flora meaner. But I really like the idea because a lot of my PCs as well always are very much characters who like strive for perfection in one way or another, and Flora is just content being a layabout mess, and that really is a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, that is quite different from a lot of the characters I've sort of been with you and you've played. It's been quite a few different games actually. Boys?
Graham?
Sorry?
I'm still thinking basically about how I'm going to phrase this.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, don't overstretch yourself.
You see, that's the benefit of playing Cleo, is that she wouldn't really think about what she says, so I can just say what I think, whereas out of character it's a bit more difficult than that. Anyway.
Yeah. I think all the decisions that Elspeth has made so far do make sense for the way I intended her character to be, and I think they do make sense. They are congruous with each other. But I will say that I did intend for her to be maybe less socially awkward than she is. She's not, like, bereft of social skills in entirety, but she's definitely more, like, awkward than I had initially planned when I first drafted the character. But I think that is in a sense that it takes you a while to find the character.
She's very endearing.
Yeah, so I often find this with player characters, that you don't really truly know what the character's supposed to be like until you've played them for a couple of hours.
I agree,
and this time it actually took me a very, very long time to sort of really settle into it. That wasn't what I intended, but it is what I have got, and that is how the character is. I think I don't want to say that, like, the character is completely this, like, separate entity that you have to find, but definitely you don't always know what you're aiming for.
I think both me and the player and Flora as a PC, I think, super appreciate that Ellie is a bit awkward and Cleo is a bit braggadocious, because Flora, as the face of the party, if you will, it sort of makes her feel needed by the other two, and I think that's a feeling that she really appreciates.
I think you're right, actually, in that it is often you play off what the other characters are doing too. So it's probably true to realise you act differently depending on who you're with, right? Not always radically differently, but differently. So maybe that is why you can't always work it out to start with. But.
And I definitely think, just to sort of go a bit further into what Graham just said there, like, I definitely feel like our initial concept of our characters has been, like, totally modified by their interactions with each other, where some of them have sort of polarised a little bit more and things like that. Just to sort of, like we were talking about before, because we're all GMs, to make, like, narrative sense that there's not sort of a huge overlap necessarily.
Yeah, you don't all want to be playing the same character, I think. In a sense, with what Anne was saying earlier as well, we have actually... you said that you and Will have picked similar knacks, but also me and Will have built similar characters statistically. Yeah. So from a sort of pure gameplay perspective, we could end up doing the same thing all the time. So I think it works well that we're not.
I think it's quite a good mix, and, like, the characters have actually... They didn't gel very well at the beginning, but they're sort of starting to gel together now. And I think that's quite nice, seeing that sort of awkward start to it. They haven't immediately all gone, yes, we're going to go off adventuring, it'll be fine, which is a lot of D&D games. Yeah. But rather just trying to feeling each other out and being like, do I like you? Do I want to hang out with you? I don't know. I will think about this. And I think that's been quite a nice thing to see develop over the course of the arc.
Another thing I really appreciate is that, like, we all turned up to the as of yet unreleased character creation session, realising we'd all sort of built jocks, basically.
You're all sports jocks.
Which I think is still true. I think they all kind of have a little bit of that confidence.
It's in there somewhere.
But I think that we all turned up with character concepts in terms of, like, similar-ish ways, but the way they've grown is so totally different, especially based on their reactions to one another. Like, I think, even though I said I would like Flora to be a bit meaner, she is kind of a little bit more snarky to Cleo than Elspeth, because she feels like Cleo can take it.
Yeah, and she's definitely, I think, well, in reverse, Cleo and Flora are warming to each other as well. Whereas to start with, they really did sort of just get at each other, whereas now it's like there's more humour to it, I think, if that's... I don't know if you agree that's accurate or not, but...
Yeah, Flora has always liked Cleo and Elspeth, but she hasn't... Listen, Flora's whole flaw is that she isn't good at making friends and can't keep friends.
Right. Yeah.
And being really unwilling to make a second effort with the girls, if once they were a little standoffish at the start, is a reverse to, like, how she is now with them, is, like, is in my opinion, like, one of her big character growth, like, learning to give a damn, basically.
Oh, she's growing as a person.
She is.
Yay.
You're all growing. They're all growing as people. Cleo is learning she can have friends.
Cleo's got friends. They just haven't come up yet.
Where are they?
Like, Luce can confirm, there are friends in the backstory. They're just not here yet.
There are friends in the backstory.
I have a fan theory that Cleo has a crush on her lab partner.
I was like, there's no way Cleo cares this much about her academics, but she keeps wanting to go back. So.
There's got to be a reason.
I also enjoyed everyone's reaction to finding out that Cleo studies veterinary studies.
Doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
The whiplash that I could feel across
like,
the chat from Graham and Am. Like, wait, what?
I think Elspeth still doesn't believe her.
Was amazing.
She's convinced that she's studying sport science.
Especially because it was just Elspeth whiplash, because I already knew, and also the way Flora played it, I was like, I imagine Cleo told Flora this while just absolutely faced.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know what Cleo's told Flora. Like, anything could have happened.
This is very true.
I mean, especially because Flora runs the student bar where Cleo's been a few times. So.
Exactly. Maybe that could be a bit of extra content as well for another interlude episode. It's just a completely off-it Cleo, just spouting things. Will, do you want to improv for like 2 hours?
I want to do like a fun interlude episode where Flora hosts the Super Bowl party at the bar.
I would be
That's
so
what
out of
I
depth.
want.
I know nothing about Super Bowl.
Me neither.
I'm happy to roll with it because I think that would be in character anyway. But
So far, what has been your guys' favourite NPC?
ooh, oh, that's actually a really good one. Okay, well,
I have 2 answers.
You can have
'Cause
two
I have-
answers.
I have a Flora answer and I have an Am answer.
Is Flora's Hippolyta?
Yeah, well, Flora's having a biasis about Fred and Hippolyta.
Yes! That's amazing.
Fred, what, the dark horse in this competition.
Luce is far too happy at the moment.
My favourite character, my favourite NPC is actually Elspeth's mum.
Maria.
I'll tell
Shout
you
out
for
to
why.
Maria.
It's because she is so radically different to Flora's mum in the way that Flora's mum is a hippie art teacher from California, and Maria is just the absolute opposite of that. But Flora's a mummy's girl, and she misses her mum a lot. So whenever like a vaguely maternal figure is like, "Come round for dinner," she's like, "Oh, thank God, yes, please, I miss it so much." So I think she's endeared to her, but also sort of really intrigued by how different she is to her own mother. And that's why I think she's my favourite NPC.
That's really nice.
That's actually a really good answer.
Thank you. I have a degree and a half in narrative stuff.
Narrative stuff. We love narrative stuff.
Narrative stuff. I was going to say that mine is my favourite is definitely Fred, because I think his arc from being like a fairly like, I don't want to say one note character because that sounds like I'm being harsh to like Luce's storytelling abilities, but
Yeah.
you know he was clearly like a bit of a punchline.
Oh, yes,
right?
and then you
He
guys
was
sort of
trash.
said, we will adopt this character. And I was like, I need to make him a person.
And now he genuinely feels like a fully fledged character in the story, and I just think that's super
I think we
cool.
have like Fred, and then we have like Proto Fred, and one of them is just objectively meh, and the other one's like, oh,
Yeah.
actually, I like this character.
Fred, he has a lot of growth to do as a young man, basically.
He can
He's
have some
got
responsibility.
some growing up to do. Fred is on the right path because he's hanging around with good people. But if he started hanging around with the wrong people, he could go very dark.
I'm going to slide either way.
Oh yeah.
But he's doing
Yeah.
good. He's doing good.
I see like a little past
At
Graham
the moment, everything is okay. Pray that it does not change.
Yes.
I don't like the sound of that yes from you there.
That was evil.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you have a Cleo answer for the fave NPC, or does she just not enjoy anyone?
Genuinely, no, not really. She's like, these people are all very strange.
Oh, I love her.
I mean,
That's
that's
a very
true.
Cleo answer.
That is accurate.
Yes.
Graham, what about you?
Obviously, Elspeth's favourite character is Theo. Like, we know this.
Yeah.
I also really like Theo. But I think the character that I always, throughout the entire thing, found the most interesting was our boy Simon, who is no longer our boy Simon, they are now Loki. So, for me, they're really interesting. And they are my favourite NPC for that reason. Do I like them? I don't know yet.
Nah.
So this is the thing with this question. It's like when you say, which NPC do you like best? I don't know if I like them best.
Yeah, so
because
your
they might be terrible.
NPC. Yeah.
Yeah. But they are my favourite for narrative purposes, I suppose.
Yeah, and well, in the next sort of arc, we'll be seeing a lot more of them as well. which will be interesting because so far they've sort of been a little bit of a Deus Ex Machina.
I mean,
they've sort of been there
literally
knowing
Deus
more
Ex
things
Machina.
and sort of giving you a little bit of information, then disappearing. Quite literally, yes. But now it's going to be a little more involved, so it's going to be interesting to see that dynamic change.
Yeah, and I'm very keen for it.
Do you guys have any questions for me?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I think my first question for you, Luz, is have we, even though I don't think the answer to this is going to be yes, because you know us so well, but have we, as players or as PCs, have we done anything that's surprised you? Or
if this had been the first time we'd all played together, the answer would probably have been yes, because you have made some quite rogue decisions. But the thing is, I know you guys really well.
Like what?
It's just you sometimes ask questions and I'm like, okay, yes. Oh, I sometimes answer yes, I don't always answer yes. Okay, well, I will say yes to this and just see what happens. Like, or you sometimes just make really odd decisions. Like when you decided, there's this strange cult in the park with magic food. I'm going to go sit down with them and go and talk to them. And like,
got to interact with
okay,
the plot points.
we'll roll with this. Because you saw they were magic, they saw they were a bit shady. I assumed you guys were just going to attack them.
We're not just going to go like punch people.
Hurting anyone though, were they?
I know, yeah. Maybe that was my fault. And also just like. Yeah. And some of the decisions you made, like when you broke into Manason's office and then just sort of stood there and then didn't ask. You were asking me questions, but I was like, "There's a computer there," and then it took you so long to think, "Oh, maybe we should try and unlock the computer," and stuff like that. I'm like, "It's okay. There's a desk. There's a computer. There's some books. I want to check out his drawers. I want to open all the things. I want to read the books." I have said there is a computer, but
yeah.
So to clarify, your response to this question
I
is,
know you guys so
if
well.
I didn't already know you were such idiots,
yeah, right.
then the answer I would be surprised by how stupid you are.
Not quite that. It's just you roleplay your characters very well, which means that you make some quite weird decisions.
It was very in character for Laura to just go eat cake.
Which is that's why it's not it is all very in character, which is a really, really good thing. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's nothing you've done that's like totally derailed anything I had planned, because I don't really plan anything. So nothing like that's happened. But it has been fun seeing where you've gone with things.
Glad we can serve, yeah.
My question actually will ping us slightly back to what we were talking about 5 minutes ago. So I have written this in quote marks, Simon, end quote marks, intended to be introduced so early? And what was the plan if we didn't immediately like hyperfixate on this character? Because we saw them sitting down and we were like, oh my god, one person sitting alone in this weird bar, they must be interesting. And then from then on, every time we went there, it was like, is Simon here? Is Simon here? How were you going to introduce them?
I love solving puzzles, and Luce put a Rubik's Cube down in front of my face.
Yeah, so I always knew that the entrance to the underworld was going to be under the bar. And then I knew that Simon was always going to be in the bar. He was just going to be sitting there until you decided, or they were just going to be sitting there until you guys decided to interact.
Yeah.
And you guys, as soon as I mentioned there was a guy in the, it's like the whole goblin thing. There's a plot here. Who's this guy at the bar? And so because I know you guys, and I knew as soon as I said there's a figure here, you were going to like, suspicious.
We must talk to them.
But they were going to be there every time you were there until you interacted with them.
So it was bait.
Yes, it was very much bait. It was very much bait, and you very much fell for it immediately.
Oh yeah.
Which was very fun. So we got a bit more of Simon than I was not anticipating, because I knew you might have gone from them then, but they're always going to be sort of in the background, there being suspicious. And then you guys decided to run at them head first.
Oh yeah, and was the intent always to have the sort of the deal? Because obviously we struck that deal with them saying if they gave us information we would repay a favour at a later date. Was that completely like ad-lib from us going over to them and just being like, give us info? Or
so they were always going to be instrumental in the next bit of the plot, but I sort of didn't really know how they were going to get you to do what they wanted. And then you guys like, oh, well, can you give us information? I was like, they'd ask for a deal. This now makes it very easy for me to say, perfect. You now have to do this thing. So I was like, yes, you have done this. You have fallen into a trap I hadn't known I'd made.
As a player, though, I was just there like, this is such a terrible idea. Let's do it.
As soon as I said it, I was like, you're not going to take it. And then you're like, yeah, right.
Hell yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh my god. It's decisions like that that are insane.
To be fair, we put a lot of caveats on it.
You did.
Yeah, but like it still might be objectively our worst decision we've made. Like
yes.
considering the payoff, where all we got was some information that like we probably could have worked out, just taking up a bit more time, and now we have to go do a doomsday.
Yeah, you
like,
now have to
I don't know if that really weighs out.
Like start the apocalypse or Ragnarok or like whatever you want to call it, or the end of the world.
Part of our decision was that we wouldn't have to kill anyone, and I think de facto starting the apocalypse counts as killing people unless they can guarantee it doesn't.
Questions of agency arise here, I think.
No, because what they've asked you to do is help them free a wolf. The fact that then goes on to start the apocalypse is a loophole. There's a loophole in the deal.
Oh, that's so annoying. Will, what's
try and
your
argue it out if you
question?
Sorry, I'm still upset by that answer from Liz. So my question was why you chose to set the game initially in Washington DC, and whether you see it continue to be set in DC, or whether we're going to do like a bit of a road trip or something.
I didn't really know. I always knew I wanted it to be set in a university, and then I was like, that would be a fun university and a fun city to place this. And it was like, Washington. I've been there recently, and I like the Smithsonian. There's literally whole thinking behind Washington. And no, the plan is you're gonna go travelling a little bit around, not just America. It's gonna be sort of like a world road trip.
Yes! Oh, that's so exciting.
Yes.
There'll be lots of hopping places and finding out things and travelling around the world.
We're going to get so many frequent flyer points on Pegasus
luckily,
or something.
Cleo have signal on the flight thanks to my magic iPhone, which I haven't got to use yet, but I'm still planning it.
You have used it once.
Oh yeah, but I haven't used its abilities once. I just used it as a phone.
Instagram.
Yeah, part of the character creation is you start with these gifts, like these magical gifts, and one of Cleo's is a magical phone that uses like Bifrost magic to work wherever it goes, which is a lot of fun.
Luce, my final question for you. So I know you said we couldn't ask any more questions about the next adventure, but
you can ask questions. I just might not be able to go into too much detail.
I do have one, which is me trying to be sneaky and figure out what to do next. But can you give us like a one sentence hint of what to expect from the next arc?
A lot more magic.
Ooh, I can't do any magic. I have no occult.
Yeah, that's what I'll say. It's going to be going more into some of the weirder aspects of mythology.
Laura is in danger.
Take that as you will.
Yeah, everyone else?
Graham?
So, I've written down this question as, were there in any alternate win conditions for some of the encounters? But what I specifically, I think, was getting at with this was, could we have found a way to trick Odysseus, do you think?
You could have done. It would have been difficult, because he's built for knowledge, like Cleo is built for battle. So he's a
smart boy.
Depending on roles, you probably could have been able to trick him into doing something. And I was never going to say, no, you can't do that.
We could certainly try.
Yeah, you can certainly try. But it probably would have been quite difficult.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting, because I think I went into it thinking like, really want to find a non-combat way to do this, and then obviously he just was sort of trapping us with this, and then it was like, now Flora's just getting high on birthday cake or something.
Magic cupcakes.
So, I think the opportunity for me, I didn't ever think of anything, and I really wanted to, but I didn't ever get to it. So it's good to know that it would have been challenging, I suppose.
Yeah, it would. You
that would
could
have
have done
fun.
things because he spent so long in his office. I sort of assumed you were going to set something up in his office as a trap, so to trap him in there or something.
I tried to do that and they wouldn't let me.
And then you guys are just like, no, we're just going to investigate everything, leave it as we are, talk to this raven, and go.
Yeah.
Don't say you guys. Do not include me in this decision. I wanted to trap the office.
Yeah, we found that Theo had a nice desktop background. That was important. I think specifically it was him on holiday with someone.
Yeah, it was.
With his boyfriend, yeah.
No, not his boyfriend.
Ooh.
Someone.
Husband?
Someone. He was on holiday with someone. It might come up at some
Whoa.
point. Who knows?
You knows.
Yeah, hopefully.
You know the answer.
Well, I don't know if it will come up. I know who it was in the photo, but I don't know if it will come up.
Are they dead?
Depends what you guys do.
Ah!
So it depends where the story goes.
What?
It's not like an important bit of
It is now. Time to fixate on another character.
Will, I have a question for you. What's the final question of our Q&A episode?
Okay.
Nice.
Oh, we've literally just had a question that's just come in now. By the way,
go
from
on, is it
someone
good?
else.
Oh, really?
Yeah, should we do that one now?
Yeah, awesome.
At Gemma,
Oh my God, Gemma.
at Gemma Rashida, is that pronunciation? Asks, why did you decide on the less than 1 hour episode length when many other TTRPG podcasts end up to the 2 to 3 hour mark? How much gets cut out in the editing process?
Well, we do it a little differently because
It is physically impossible for us to be charismatic for more than an hour.
Well,
For
we
yourself.
we try and record 2 episodes in a go. So for us, we are playing for about just over 2 hours, but we have a gap in the middle where we sort of split it into two 1 hour chunks. I prefer a slightly shorter. This is like with some podcast RPGs. I really enjoy
Podcast that
them.
will not be named.
No, but I do something. 3 hour episodes are a bit unwieldy to listen to. Because
We talked about it at length.
yeah, we were trying to figure out what we were going to do, and we decided we wanted to do a slightly shorter episode. So if someone wanted to just listen to one, it would have like that one episode would have. You could listen to it in one go and have a beginning, middle, and end, and not take up a whole afternoon or a whole morning. So it's something you could listen to while getting lunch at work or that kind of thing. So it's a little easier to listen to it while you're doing other things, while you're moving around, rather than having to sit down and focus solidly for 3 hours on one thing. Just sort of why in the end we decided to go for a little bit of a shorter, and it's a bit easier for us to do as well.
Also, I will say, a lot of the people who make podcasts, RPG podcasts, which end up being so long, like if you look at Critical Role, The Adventure Zone, Not Another D&D Podcast, or even Rusty Quill Gaming Podcast, these are all people who are professional podcast producers and content listeners, and so they get paid for their time. We are very much amateur. Will has a full-time job. I'm a student. Luce is about to start a career in teaching, and Graham is currently applying for his PhD. So we all have a lot of other stuff going on. We've got a lot of other stuff going on in our lives at the moment. So we don't get paid for this time. This is made entirely of our free time. So we can't afford to do it for as long as other people.
It would have meant that we had to release less regularly, I think, is something we also weighed up. We wanted to release weekly.
Yeah, because we were debating if we wanted longer episodes releasing sort of on a every other week schedule, or shorter ones that we could do every week. Which I think we decided on that just so it felt a little. So it was because then when it's coming out every week, it is out every week, and then you know when it's coming out, rather than having like a long gap in between episodes releasing.
Usually, collectively, about 20 minutes of ums and ahs and looking up rules ends up on the cutting room floor.
Yes.
I will say there are occasionally very, very funny bits, which I do get rid of, because I think they're funny to us as a group of friends who have been friends for a year and a half.
There are some
And
tangents.
not to people
Some long
that have had
tangents.
to do. Some very long tangents.
Yeah.
Especially because we all went to the same uni, there's been lots of tangents about our time at uni.
Hey, there's this TV show I watched. So I think during the second last episode, we had a very long tangent, which was very entertaining about a TV show that Anne would be watching that was relevant to her character. But I think,
But not at all relevant.
a lot of it had
the
to go,
podcast.
unfortunately. But it was quite fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and some of the stuff we talk about is also personal information, which, like, as much as only our friends really listen to the podcast, it's stuff that I don't think we would feel comfortable putting out on a public platform. So I get rid of that kind of stuff as well.
Yeeting it out online. Like, one of the things that I think, like, collectively we're really proud of is how accessible all of our podcast stuff is. You know, it's on loads of different platforms, free for everyone to find, like, quite easy actually to find. Even if you just Google it, it comes up with some sites. So that's great, but it also means that people might stumble across it, and if we've got loads of personal information in there, then it's kind of...
Yeah, and there's some stuff where, like, in a previous episode, Will references an area in which he lives, and I message him being like, is it cool if I include this? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. But there's some other stuff where people talk about personal friends and family, and I've asked if I can include it, and they've been like, no, I do not want that in the podcast.
Yeah, which is like completely fair.
Yeah, it's just sort of like some safeguarding stuff.
So to answer the second half of the question, I think, which Am has really just done, we probably record for about an hour 20, I think, on average for episodes, and then keep about an hour.
Yeah, we usually have about an hour of footage, and I usually cut it down to about 5 minutes. But yeah, I'll ask again. Will, can you give us the final question of this episode?
Yeah, sorry, that kind of
good.
popped up. Literally, I was checking my phone to read the questions that I had written down, and I saw that as a notif reply, so thank you, Jem, for that question. So, my last question for Luz is why... Because obviously we're covering a few different... Is everything okay?
Yeah, I was doing a drum roll.
Oh, right.
Oh, right. I thought
you were
that was someone like
rapidly
knocking at your door or something. Yeah. So obviously we're straddling like a few different pantheons, and think both of our characters and some of the people we've talked to, like Fred's King Arthur, for example. Is there a reason you chose to start with the Greek kind of pantheon, Greek mythology, for like our first sort of main arc?
Very much so. It's because I studied it for 4 years, so I know a lot about it and can make a lot of stuff up on the top of my head.
I was expecting that. Yeah.
See, I did an undergrad in ancient history and a master's in classics and ancient history, so I know a lot of the Greek and Roman myths very well without having to do lots and lots of research. And then sort of I'm trying to get some more Norse stuff in, because again, I've studied some Norse mythology and I've studied some Egyptian mythology, but nowhere near in its great depth, and those are the only three I've really looked at in any detail at all. So it sort of started in the one I know, because I'm happy to sort of twist that and change it, because I know I can do that and not sort of get it wrong in a way.
Yeah.
Whereas I want to be careful about how I treat other cultures, mythologies.
So what you're telling me is Flora's backstory resolution is going to be lost?
Yes. So we're going into a slightly more Norse one next, because that's what I know the next best. Then we'll probably go into some more Egyptian stuff, and then into stuff with Sun Wukong and that stuff, because Shen, because I don't know a lot about it, so I need to do a lot of my own research before we start doing it more.
Yeah, there is also a certain series of books, young adult novels, which I'm sure we've all read, which are quite applicable really to like the Scion system and how Scion generates its world. Which will go unnamed.
Rick Riordan does get free advertising on this podcast.
He does.
We love him.
We love him.
Right, sure. I was just doing a bit, but go off, Anne. So I was just wondering how much that influenced how you presented the podcast and things like that.
I think
and presented the world.
Definitely some influence there, because I grew up with those books. But I think I haven't actually read any Rick Riordan books since I was for about...
How old am I?
For about 8 years now. So it's been quite a while since I've actually read any of his books. And so I think there's always been that, because it's a similar sort of concept behind it. But I think I'd be more influenced by the myths themselves rather than the myths through the Percy Jackson series or the Heroes of Olympus series.
Okay.
So I think there's definitely I definitely took some influence from it, but not as much as maybe it looks like, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. It's just obviously, I mean, they're books that we've all talked about loving, and the concept, like you said, is at least quite similar.
On the surface, it's quite similar, yeah.
But I think tonally as well, it's we're quite different.
Yeah, it's less sort of children's.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Fair, I think.
Yeah,
it's
different target audience.
Different target audience, and the Rick Riordan's books are really, really good, and they are very, very diverse, and they've got really good things behind them. But they are sort of for teenagers and young teenagers. Whereas I think ours is a bit more it's not adult, but it's looking in depth at more sort of a different side of things in a way.
Also, our protagonists are older.
Sorry, I know that was quite
a
tricky question to basically be like, did you commit an intellectual property theft? But you know what I mean.
I think yeah, what Graham was saying, but with the PCs being, in their early 20s, it's got quite a different vibe to it, because you're going to be experiencing things very differently.
Early 20s or late teens.
Well, I want to say thank you, Luce, for all the hard work you've put into the game, because you are a really good GM.
I'm glad you like it.
I'm clapping, but like air clapping, because I don't want to ruin the audio.
Can we do a little golf clap?
Yeah.
Yeah, little clap for Luce.
I don't want to
like a
spike the
little
audio
golf
too
clap,
hard.
a gentle clap. Okay.
So, if anyone wants to tell Luce how much they love them and try and contest our love for them, what can they do?
Good question, Am. Thank you. You can follow us on Twitter at RWD_pod and tweet using the hashtag RWDPod. You can also find the rest of our archive, if for some reason you're listening to this before the others, on Acast, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever else you may get your podcasts, under A Rendezvous with Destiny. I don't know why we picked a word that was so difficult to type, but there you are.
Aaron.
Aaron. I know that was unintentional, Graham, but that was a Key and Peele reference, and Keegan-Michael Key is...
No, it was deliberate.
Yeah, but Keegan-Michael Key's accent is my accent template for Cleo, because he's from Detroit.
Detroit.
So that's a cool crossover in my head. Yeah.
Detroit.
Yeah.
I'm just enjoying the fact that our geotag on the Twitter is fictionalized Washington DC.
Yes.
It always gets me.
This material is unofficial and is not endorsed by Onyx Path. We are claiming no ownership over Onyx Path intellectual properties, game systems, art or stories, which remain the properties of the rights holders. All characters, names and locations used are either public domain or are entirely fictional and bear no intended resemblance to their real life counterparts. If you have any legal issues, please contact us directly. Thank you.